Well, welcome to a new Harry's Farm video. And yeah, the combine. This is its moment to shine, really. It is the weather. You cannot help but talk about the weather at the moment because it is just crazy. But in this video, we're going to talk about harvest imminent, trees. I'm going to talk about trees. I had a huge response to the last video. Lots of experts, and I'm hugely grateful to everyone who contacted me. I haven't got back to everyone, but it's been a real learning curve. So I'm going to go into detail what we're going to do there. And just things that have been happening on the farm. Been a lot of haymaking. You wouldn't be surprised to hear in this sort of weather. So yeah, no, combine. It's sort of on standby at the moment. It's always this great big bit of kit that's your biggest, shiniest bit of kit in the shed generally, and it has this one moment when it all comes together. So it's sort of maintenance, just working out what's, where it's all got through the winter all right. We had it serviced, big service last year, so the intention is not to do a service engine oil change because it hasn't got very many hours on it since the last service, and it's only got 115 acres or something to cut. So yeah, I'm pleased to say there are no warning lights coming up in the cabs. That's good, and we started up and everything looks good. And the most important thing is the air conditioning looks absolutely fine, and it's nice and chilly in the cab. And that's a good job because I just checked my weather app for the farm weather station I have here, and it's 31.4 degrees centigrade today. And yeah, that's warm, and it's warmer again tomorrow, and it continues. And God, we've had some weather recently, and it's yeah, it is reminiscent of 76. I know it gets a lot of mention in 1976, but it was very like this continual heat and not a lot of rain. I was looking back, July 24 last year, it was really quite wet. We didn't start combine until the 11th of August, and in July we received 88 mil of rain. 88 mil in July, and it was it wasn't just in one big thunderstorm, it was through the month. So yeah, a very different year this year. Combines have been rolling all around us. Barley is generally done, winter barley, and they're going into oilseed rape, and they're right on the cusp of spring barley and also some early crops of winter wheat. So we ought to go and have a look at the winter wheat and explain why we're not quite going yet. Now, I've brought you down to this field because this is quite variable in ripeness and sort of getting ready for harvest. And this is all part of, getting ready for harvest. You're really keen to get out there, but you have to wait for everything to be right. And especially when it's just not quite ripe and you're just waiting for the first field to combine. You can see here, there's sort of a greenish tinge to the wheat here. And this is sort of late, it's hanging on, it's nowhere near combine ready, but it's just been shaded slightly by the wood. It's a bit damp, this corner, and didn't get going. And what you're looking for before it's ready to combine is it starts to what we term to neck over. You can sort of see that is a ripe grain there. You see how it's sort of hanging down like that. If I rub this one out, look, there's proper ripe grain there. So still a bit soft, so it's probably like 20%. But right next to it are these green grains like this, and that's way off. That's weeks away from the rest of the field, and I can see an odd patch of green there. And that really hit on this farm. This was caused by the really wet sort of late autumn, early spring weather we had, and it stayed wet in those areas. And I've got this variability right across the farm, especially when I've got fields with very different soil types, one end to the other. And so the best thing they always used to say when you get to sort of wheat that looks like this on farm is go off on holiday. And yeah, that's what my son's about to do. So I'm losing my combine driver for a week or so, and it'll be very interesting if we really should be combining before we get back. Well, that's being the next report. I don't know, but the weather so hot at the moment. This is changing by the day, and I have other fields that are much closer to combining than this. And I ought to mention the price of wheat as well. You'd think with the drop of acres that have been grown in the UK, we would have seen a rise in price because there's going to be less supply. Hasn't happened. that you look at it as a global commodity now, wheat. EU plantings are up, crops good in most areas, and so they're expecting a bigger crop in Europe. US has excellent corn, I'm told, wheat's up. So generally there's a good stock of wheat around the world. So even though the UK is not going to produce as much wheat as last year, and last year was a bad year for wheat, then the price, unfortunately, continues to drop. I sold all the wheat last year, harvest movement, £183 a tonne. Year before, 2023, £192. I rang up merchant today, £157 is today's price, and yeah, 22% down. So that vindicates me saying, I'm not putting the whole farm down as arable cropping, I'm going into these environmental schemes. As a business case, it's really tricky when you see a price drop like that on your main commodity and the increase in prices on inputs, fertilizer, sprays, seed, etc. Then it just doesn't work as a business. It's very interesting what's happening at the moment. So yeah, we're going to stand off the wheat for the moment, and I think by the next time I put a video out, I think we'll be itching and probably have cut some wheat. But anyway, that's the story on the arable side. Let's go and have a look at the grass and what's happening down there. Just looking at these fields here, these are much more ripe. It's all the wheat is necked over, and it gives me a bit of a concern that perhaps we'll be in there sooner rather than later. And then you get these areas where it flooded out and just the wheat died, and then you've got this weed growth, which is a right pain. And this is going into enhanced stubble, and they don't like you using glyphosate before combining. You're meant to not do that. And that's sort of what that needs doing, so then it'll be all right when I actually put the combine in. But there we go. Now here's the grass, and we've been very busy haymaking, and there are normally bits of the fields we don't cut because they're just too steep, and this is one bit, and I think the guy mowing this was pretty damn brave, because this is properly steep. I know it never comes out on camera. That bit he chickened out. He couldn't do that bit there. I'm not surprised. This car doesn't actually have a way of measuring the angle, but yeah, proper steep. But all done, and yeah, yields of this. We did it with round bales, so they come in so hot they hardly had to turn it. Turned it once, possibly twice, and then bale it up, round bales, and you have a sort of moisture probe and you check it's right. Some of it was haylage rather than hay, round bales, and all gets taken back, and the yield was sort of half what we expected. It was half of what a normal year is, although we have this brook running down the farm, through the farm, and just near that sort of deeper soil, loamier soil, is a bit better down there. But on the brashy banks, yeah, it's not a year for growing grass, and now it's all being cut. It's all going, yeah, it's not exactly growing back in a hurry. We do need some rain. And another thing I've got to do is that there's some fencing here, and there's a frustration here because I got a letter. A letter just came through the post, and although this brook isn't flow down here, it dries out in the summer, but I had a letter from the Department of Environmental, Food and Rural Affairs. We're writing because it appears you own a property in a designated nitrate vulnerable zone, and I now have to take steps to stop manure, fertiliser and soil getting into water to prevent agricultural diffuse pollution. So forever there's been cattle, something grazing down here, and DEFRA are now saying they can no longer drink out of the brook. They have to find water from somewhere else, and I'm meant to fence it all off. I'm going to discuss this with them, and whether there's a way I can fence it in a way that the cattle can actually have something to drink, but not be able to actually poach and go in there and perhaps poo in there as well. So there's got to be a way around it. I can't have all this grassland that hasn't got a water supply other than the brook. I don't want to suddenly have to dig up and pipe everywhere. There isn't the money in farm grazing, having a suckler curd down here that's going to warrant doing that amount. The furthest point is probably over a mile from the farm. That would be an expensive pastime. I can do it with a Bowser, but you just think there's just water there, and they won't pollute it. If you just have a little tiny bit, what chance of pollution is going to get all the way to a waterworks down there when the whole thing dries out over the summer anyway? It's not as though it flows through it. There are just these little areas of water. This is the furthest field away from the farm, and there are actually a little gang of rams in here. I can just see them up there. And this is all being cut down here. There's a little bit of water just down here in the brook that they can drink from. Should we go up and see them? Let's see if we can go straight up there. Yeah, this bit hasn't been cut either because it's, again, very steep, but Range Rover can cope. And there are the rams. So these guys, they're just hanging out in the shade as you would. Now they come across because they think, oh, we might be having some grub. I haven't brought any grub up, I'm afraid, boys. So they've just been sheared. It's a good way if you've got a flock of sheep. You don't want your rams getting in too quickly. So you put them at this farm, which is several miles away from the home farm from where they generally hang out. And they get ready for their important season when they're put in with the ewes, probably September, October time. But yeah, I brought you up here because this is the wood we've been discussing, and I'll just bring you up to date with the latest developments and how it's all going to work as far as I can see, what I've discovered since my last report. This is what, this part of England is turning into. It's just burnt off. I mean, it's quite a lot of grass here, but even with this, it just hasn't got anything. It's just run out of moisture, and it's switched off. The thing that always amazes me is how quickly this will come back if we do have some rain. None really forecast, but there is potentially next weekend there might be some rain that might spark this back into life. But yeah, this is the little bit of scruffy woodland that we were discussing last year, and there's some really mature, lovely oaks down that end, but here there's a few conifers, larch, bit of pine, and these Leylandii that were just a windbreak that went in. And this is the area I just want to rethink. What are we going to use this area for? And that was all, I detailed in the last video. Since then, lots of you got in touch, and it's been fantastic catching up with the information that is out there. And I decided the first move was actually to contact the Forestry Commission, because the country is split into areas and they have land use advisors, and I thought that's a really good place to start. And I've contacted our local one, Emma Clitheroe, and incredibly useful already. It's a free service, and they just look at your farm. I've sent over the maps. I said this is sort of indicative of what I would like to do, and I also put over where all the existing woodland was, and they quickly just do a scan and say, yeah, you'll be suitable for doing this England Woodland Creative Offer. And there's some other bits of it which I'll go through in a moment, this Woodland Creation Offer here. And fascinating how it progresses from there. It's how you use your land, what benefits you can get from it, how it will enhance the farm, how you can get woodland grants for actually clearing existing woodland, where woodland would suit your farm, what sort of income it can generate, carbon credits, all that stuff. That's what they're there for, and it's a free service. We're about 125 hectares, I think, the whole farm. The amount of woodland on the farm is pathetic, 1.94 hectares in total, a tiny percentage. I would like to get that up to 4-5 hectares in total, and it doesn't all have to be in one space. The minimum amount you put in is 1 hectare, but you can split it up. So I'm looking to give much more depth to this existing wood here, and I think I'm going into the arable field that way. What I want to find out they're going to come out to visit in a couple of weeks and do an on-farm visit. I've got a grass strip and it's got wildflowers in and things, and I'm hoping perhaps we could keep that existing as a sort of track through woodland either side, that sort of thing. And do we stretch it into this grassland as well, or do we stop at a hard barrier here? I'm fascinated how it's all going to work out. There is this initial grant, as I explained last time, £10,500 a hectare, but that covers all your planting, and it's not a cheap job putting woodland in. 10,200 a hectare, sorry. The other thing about the grants that are available, they are enhanced if you're expanding areas of existing woodland, native woodland, and apparently this will qualify for that, and that's, you know, it's quite valuable to have that. That's so from, depending on the quality of the existing woodland, it's between £1,000 and £3,000 on top of the initial grant. There is a 15-year maintenance grant, £400 a hectare, but you'll easy eat that up with looking after the woodland. I was talking to a friend who put a lot of trees in, and if you get a year like 2025, you do get a lot of losses on the trees that you put in initially. He's had up to 80% loss in a really droughty year, and that's the sort of loss that you might expect in a year like this. If you had a 2024 year when it just wouldn't stop raining, where you get very low losses. So, and you're putting, let's say, 1,000 to 1,500 trees per hectare in, you've probably got a £4 cost there, so you're £4,000–5,000 just to get them planted, and then you've got to maintain them. So yeah, it's not a way into making lots of money just from that one grant. It's just enhancing the farm, and there is also, you know, you will be selling the wood, but it's 65-year wait, so I won't appear on one of my cash flows. But it just enhances the farm, I think, putting this woodland diversity. And I also think with these carbon credits and sequestration and, you know, a few things that suck in CO2, it's going to be very interesting in the future if you are putting this woodland in. But I want to get it. That's why I'm going to EMA and Forestry Commission first. So I've got an official start and advice coming through from the people who know. The other surprise was I thought, oh, this is going to take forever to organise. But it turns out there is an express service to actually get through the planning and commissioning of the potential grants, and it's a 12-week period. And that means we might well be able to plant this out at the back end of 25, early 26. I thought we'd have to wait till next year, but no, apparently not. So it's all coming along on the woodland side. When they come out, they're also going to advise on how to manage existing woodland, and I'm really quite excited about it. But that one will be for the next video. So yeah, that's what's happening with the woodland up here. Next one, I think that combine, we might be poking in the field. If Charlie's not back, well, I'm going to have to sit on the combine by the look of things, which has been a long time. I think the last time I did proper combining was back in 1995. So yeah, I've got a bit of a learning to do there. Can I remember how a combine works? Well, we'll find out on the next report. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, keep watching, keep subscribing. More videos coming along very soon.